Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm glad that you found us here on YouTube and have joined our tribe of survivors. And today I want to talk about trauma bonding with a narcissist because it's something that I didn't even know was happening to me when I was in it. And it's been the hardest thing to overcome. And it's the thing that's taken the longest to overcome. And I'm wondering if I will ever fully recover from it sometimes because you get triggered. If you've been trauma bonded, you will get triggered at some point, even years after the fact. Years after you've healed, you don't think about them anymore. You're in a new relationship, you're happy, and then something happens and you get triggered. Just like, I got triggered a few months ago when I found out that my ex-narc had a baby with his new supply. And it absolutely triggered me, and I went through turmoil just like I did back at the beginning of the discard. And if you guys are out there and you are going through the traumatic experience of having just been discarded from a narcissist, you guys know that this is the most severe pain that anyone could ever go through. You wouldn't wish this on anybody. And so my heart goes out to you if you guys are going through that right now. So the trauma bonding. Trauma bonding is basically, Stockholm syndrome, where you love your abuser, and we think that trauma bonding can only be in relationships where there is verbal or physical abuse. It's a lot more subtle, and it's just as damaging as physical abuse. These emotional abuse subtly of someone making you feel pain and doubt and losing yourself, and then turning around and just loving you and comforting you and giving you gifts and just loving you all over, then just to turn around just to make you feel pain again. And I'll give you some examples of some trauma bonding that I know. And let's start with the worst trauma bond I've ever heard anyone go through. This was a girl who was indoctrinated into a cult when she was about 6 years old. And this particular cult, when the girls that were in there, they would have handlers, like their prime abuser, like their prime person that abused them was handling them. And they would purposely trauma bond the kids to their handlers in order to get loyalty, make sure they never run away, make sure they, keep secrets, all that stuff. And so these cults know the psychology of the trauma bonding. The chemicals that actually go off in your brain are like heroin and withdrawals, and then heroin and then withdrawals. The trauma bonding works the same. And this poor girl, they would, within the cult, there would be a group that would take her and hook her up to all these devices and torture her and give her electric shocks until she was in so much pain for so long that she couldn't even scream anymore. And then they would take her and they would hand her off to the guy, to the handler, or who would be her handler. And he would spend a couple days just comforting her and feeding her and giving her gifts and, making her feel as safe and loved as possible. Then after a few days of that, he would hand her back over to the group and they would start torturing her again. And they did this over and over and over again to create the trauma bond, like that chemical reaction in her brain to make sure she was completely loyal to her handler. So that's like the most extreme thing that I've ever heard of a trauma bond happening. And trauma bonds are done in other relationships where the abuser really physically, just like a man hits his wife and beats his wife. And why doesn't she leave? It's because, first of all, love bombing went on probably at the beginning of the relationship, and it slowly got worse and worse. But the thing is, they don't just beat their wife and are never nice to them. Usually they beat their wife and then they're overly loving to them afterwards. It's like, that's why they can't leave. They're trauma bonded. It's not as simple as just, standing up for yourself and leaving, because you have an addiction to your abuser in those situations. And I'll give you some examples of the things that my ex did to me to trauma bond me in our relationship. He had convinced me to quit my job to be with him full time, to be successful online with video making. And I didn't want to be on camera, right? So, and I still don't. And so I always had to stay behind the camera, but I really did not like filming. It was very exhausting to me. I wasn't being creative or anything. Like, he wouldn't allow me to input anything when we were filming. I was just meant to hold the camera. I would get yelled at if I didn't do it properly, or get the shot the way he wanted. So it was like these horrible experiences every day of holding this camera. Sometimes I would just be crying because I didn't want to do it, and he's like, no, we have to, this is our job, and we're doing this for success, we're going to make so much money. And then after like a day of filming, he would just over the top love me, like, I'm taking you out to dinner, we're going to have the biggest and best time, and gifts, and just all he did was love me all evening, after a day of filming, right? But that created a trauma bond, and it was a lot more than just me doing something I hated, and then him loving me for it. He convinced me that we were in this together. It was all for us, and then that he was working so hard so we could have like financial freedom and this and that. But the reality was he was just working for himself, and he was getting me to work for him. And I was like a spectator in his life, and he was confused about why I'm not enjoying doing that for him, and like he did say abusive things to me. Like, I got yelled at one morning. He said he couldn't be vegan in his own house because I was putting cream in my coffee, and how like horrible of a person I am for not being vegan. I really liked my morning coffee. It was something I've been doing my whole life with this particular cream. And he's looking at me like I'm this evil person, like, and that's something that makes you doubt yourself. You feel shameful. You feel, hated when they do things like that, and then turn around and then love you. And it's this nasty cycle, and that it could be very subtle sometimes in these narcissistic relationships, that you're being abused and then loved, and abused and then loved. And when you're in that, it's very hard to escape. It's like you're in this vortex that you can't get out of. But then the discard happens, and you are left so unbelievably broken, and you're looking at them going like, how could you hurt me like this? I've suffered so much for you. Because towards the end of the relationship, you're not getting love bombed. It's all abuse at the end, right before they leave. Usually, I got blindsided. I didn't know what was coming. One day was perfect, and the next day he left. There was nothing. And it wasn't until much later that I realized I was trauma bonded when, first I couldn't get over him. I was so upset for so long. I'm like, this is not a normal breakup. Why am I months later still crying over him and wanting him back? And after all the things he did to me after the breakup, it was like horrific. And so I was confused, really. I didn't know why I still wanted him back. I shouldn't. I know I shouldn't, but I still did. And the reason a lot of times people feel like that is because you look at the person that broke you. You were broken after the discard, and you're like, you broke me, and now you're the only one that can fix me, and you're desperate to be fixed and whole again. And the thing is, when you're trauma bonded, that's how you feel. You broke me, and you're the only one that can fix me. So I need closure. I need to get to you so you can help me not get out of the pain part of it. Because like in the trauma bond, you feel hate, and you hate yourself, you have pain and doubt. But when you're in the relationship, it would cycle into the love and the comfort and the joy and everything. But now you're stuck in this cycle of just pain. There's no love coming to you, right? And that's the trauma bond that gets created. And that's why you still want them back, because you stopped in the cycle of being stuck in the pain, and you are looking to the only thing that got you out of that pain before ever, and you think that you have to go back to them to get out of it. And I'm telling you right now, that is not true. There is only one person that you need to go back to break a trauma bond and stop the pain, and you got to go back to yourself. The person that you were before the relationship, the person that you are deep inside, you have to go inward and deep to unbreak yourself, to fix yourself. And don't look outward. It's not going to be anywhere. You're not going to find this magic solution, or you're not going to find this magic video or anything that could possibly be out there. You're not going to be able to get they say to get over someone, you got to get under someone. Okay, that's not going to work when you're dealing with a trauma bond and an abuser in a relationship. The only way you can fix yourself is to go within, find out who you are, and love yourself more than anything else. You can't get love from your ex-abuser. You can only get love from yourself. So that's how you break a trauma bond, and that's where you start. And it takes a while, because if you're freshly, in the discard stage, it's really hard to focus on yourself. It is every minute of your day, right, is about them. So to think about yourself is almost impossible, right? But you gotta turn that ship around. You're speeding ahead in a boat towards them. This huge ship is in the ocean speeding towards them. It's like, you can't just stop. It's not a race car. You can't just stop and turn around. It takes a while to turn this ship around, right? And you got to start doing that and taking steps for you to love yourself. And I am giving one-on-ones now. So just email me. I'll have the information below if you want to email me to have a one-on-one. So you guys can, talk to someone who can tell you, no, you're not crazy, and I understand, because narcissistic abuse is something different than any other abuse that goes on in a relationship. There's a reason why it's so bad, So then that's a lot of times why I make these videos too, because I had to really educate myself about what was happening to me, because I knew it wasn't normal. But I had never heard of covert narcissist, and that's what my ex was. He was a very covert, very stealthy. This guy perceived to, show the world that he was saving the world by being vegan, by adopting animals, by, all this stuff. And meanwhile, he was the worst predator that almost destroyed me. So that's, and I've had to heal myself, but I got triggered this year, and I really wasn't ready for it. And then, and it's just when you think, you're over it and you're done, something might happen. And if I can help anyone out there that has gone through a trigger, how to stop it, how to fix it, and how to love yourself, that's really what I want to do now. So email me if you need any help. I'm really glad that you guys found us here on YouTube. Love yourself first, because we're all survivors, post narcissists.